Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to share with you my current build project, which is a Spark Archmage character. And it's not the traditional way played as a Stoneweaver with the Mahuk Sottle Shield and mana stacking in that regard. It is actually a Gemling, it's an intelligence stacker, and what makes this build kind of different from the others is the amount of projectile speed that we're running, because as you see, my Sparks are, quite fast. So we are running currently 428 projectile speed on Spark, and we get this with stacking projectile speed on our quiver using a Widowhail to enhance the effect of our quiver. So we have effect of quiver from the Widowhail. We also get this from our tree over here, and I also have a bunch of jewels that are also increasing the effect of the equipped quiver. So why, or what makes a quiver special for projectiles, or in that case Spark? So in one hand it is the projectile speed, in another way it is the projectile skills, and what is nice is the chance to pierce, since this is a penetrating quiver, and the mana per enemy killed. I think these are the four stats that are kind of interesting. The rest, like all this like damage to attacks, crit and whatnot, doesn't really matter at all. So I picked this quiver up for like 3 divines or something. So, which was quite nice to get this build going, or to at least to test it. And we are basically, with Widowhail and our jewels and the passive skill tree, we are scaling this thing up to an insane amount. And at the moment, as I said, giving us over 400% projectile speed. This is also a magic finder, so we have 200% rarity. And it also is not the slowest, because at the moment we are running 50% movement speed. So it is somewhat fast, and we are also using mobility, because as I said, this is a mapping character. I just want to run maps as fast as possible with a lot of energy shield, at least like rarity, and I want to be tanky on top of that. And you might wonder now, wait, you have 1 life, you have no ES, what is going on here, right? And before I go into the details on how this character is so tanky, or the way it is, we're just gonna go run a map with a breach, so you see how that one looks like. I just hope that we find a map, Hidden Grotto. I don't even know which are the good maps for breaches. I have like here a super big layout where I prepared all my towers ready to farm today. Just want to see Sulfuric Caverns. I mean, Mire is shit. Spiderwood sounds good, and it also has a boss, so, and a ritual, so that should be nice for a map showcase. But I think this is one of the funner ways to play Spark, and I think this is actually one of the best breach clearers that I've seen so far, just because my Spark travels so fast that once I cast it, it's already a screen away, basically. Most of the monsters I never get to see because they die off screen, even though I'm running, I would say, a clear speed setup with mobility not giving any damage, with acceleration just for more projectile speed, then inspiration for less mana cost. So this is basically control destruction and arcane tempo, which is cast speed. So we barely have any damage in our Spark, but just because of the base level and Archmage, we are doing quite a bit of damage. And usually what you're doing is, you just hold down Spark. It's a 1-button build, even though I do have some other buttons that I could press that would increase my damage. For example, Orb of Storms, Conductivity, a Mana Tempest, but realistically, I'm only pressing Spark. So this is, for me, a 1-button build, and now you're gonna see the breach showcase on how this would look like. The Sparks, as I said, the travel speed of these things is so ridiculously fast that I just hear my loot filter popping off without even knowing how many monsters or which monsters I killed. It is also decently good for bosses, but this is, for me now, a strict mapper, okay? I invested a lot into rarity, I invested into projectile speed, I invested into quality of life. I do not care about killing bosses whatsoever as of right now, but with just a simple gear swap, I think this could become a very good boss killer, just of the nature of Spark and the way Archmage works right now. I would assume is going to get nerfed, but yeah, I mean, it's early access, and a lot of builds that are currently overperforming are going to get nerfed either way. So you can decide, like, either you're going to spend like 500 divines on a build and it's most likely going to get nerfed next week, but I see it in another way. I just want to have fun playing the game, and that's what I currently do. And if Spark or Archmage or Mind Over Matter or other things get nerfed, then I'm going to find other builds and other ways to have fun in the game. But as you see, mapping-wise, you just press 1 button, and that is basically it. It's hard to get a lot of movement speed if you not play Queen of the Forest, which I've done before. But honestly, pure evasion-based builds without acrobatics feels so squishy, and this version with Mind Over Matter and mana scaling just felt so much more tanky. So here we have a boss, so what I would do is I'm gonna put down my Orb of Storms, then probably a Conductivity, and then just... oh wait, there's a Mana Melter. That kind of sucks, but as you see, damage-wise, it's still super fine for being a mapping character, so we can do all the bosses no problem. And yeah, this is basically the showcase of the current setup. It is still a bit of a scuffed setup. I'm still missing a bunch of the stuff that I would like to have, but it can map quite fast, and this is actually the part where I'm most interested in, because now I can just farm, I make currency, I invest currency, and make the build stronger as we go with, obviously, yeah, further updates to the build coming, because I really, really enjoy this character, so I guess I'm gonna play it more, I would say. So let's quickly clear off the breach over here, but there is one item that is expensive, and that is my Mana Flask. This is the Melting Maelstrom. I think I bought it yesterday for 35 divines, so that is expensive. But as you see on my mana pool, while mapping, I don't need any of that. The only thing where I need it is bossing, because with Archmage, even though I run a lot of like mana reduction, I'm still running And if a mana character is you're most likely gonna die, or you just cannot kill the boss because you have no mana left, right? And as I said, I played this already with Inspiration support, and I do play this with the advanced Taumaturgy, whatever, with 30% less cost of skill. But with the nature of Archmage, adding base mana cost to skill yeah, it's kind of hard. So what do we have here? There is basically nothing. Reroll, anything here? Not really. Reroll, and... nope. No items. I'll pick the Regal, and we go out of here. I'm gonna pick up this stuff later on after the video. So, as you already saw, pretty fancy character with a lot of scaling potential, in my opinion, coming to the gearing part. So I would say, first of all, we talk about the aspect of Widowhail. I explained already what the Quiver does and why do we take it, but there is certain breakpoints that you need to hit. And we're not talking about projectile speed, we talk about the projectile skill level. And that is basically... if you have 2 projectile skills and you add 50% of effect, so 1 times 1.5, we get to 3. So every 50% of quiver effect, we get 1 additional level. So with my current setup, I'm running like 248 on my quiver. Then we have 80% effect on this wheel over here with the increased bonus of quiver. So that's plus 80. What do we say? Give me a sec, I misclicked. So we have 248. Plus 80. Okay. And then we basically have like a bunch of like jewels that also give like a quiver effect. And I think I have like double 15 is 30 plus 13 is 43. So I'm currently on 371. So I'm 21 over my last, what do you say, skill point for... plus skill, and I'm like 29 below. So you basically want to average that out. If you ask me like now, what kind of Widowhail do you need? And obviously they go up to like 300 something %, but at the end of the day, you need to summarize all your quiver effect, and you need to hit the breakpoint of 50. So either like 300, 350, 400, 450, and so on and so forth. And this is basically how you get levels of Spark to do a ridiculous amount of damage. With the projectile speed, it's not that bad because it is a 45 value, so even like a 10% increased quiver effect will already give you more projectile speed, but we are mainly focusing on the projectile skill level to get increased damage. Then from the other gearing part, I would say it is very general. It's basically intelligence, resistance, mana, evasion rating. Or energy shield rating, because with the keystone, what do we have here? The Eldritch Battery, it converts our energy shield to mana. So not only do my boots have flat 102 mana, it also has 113 energy shield that is getting converted into mana, basically, right? So these two things are important, and intelligence gives me plus 2 mana, but since I'm a Gemling, I took the note over here, which has enhanced effectiveness, which says the inherent bonuses from intelligence, strength, and dexterity are doubled. That means for each point of intelligence, I'm actually getting 4 mana instead of 2, which makes it like a very good class to stack attributes with, what we already learned with the attribute stacker. So the goal is mana, ES, and intelligence to get a very nice mana pool, and the mana pool is basically our life our whole defense and also offensive, basically, since we're playing Archmage. But all these items are pretty much the same. They all have like mana, ES, rarity, intelligence, and resistance. It is very rough to gear, but this is basically like a route to follow. So I'm quickly going to hover over all the gear pieces, so you see what items I have here in specific if you want to pause the video. Rings are basically the same thing: mana, rarity, intelligence, and resistance, like all my pieces are. The belt basically is a 70% ingenuity. I bought this for 25 divines. Is basically giving me an extra 70% of my equipped bonus rings. And quite frankly, do you need that? Not really. I just think every item that I know don't have to care about is one item that I win, okay? Means if I have this belt, I know I don't need to buy any other belt. I would go even furthermore. If I would have a Calandra's Touch, it would even be better. So a Calandra's Touch, which mirrors my other ring, then this belt that basically gets more effect out of my ring. And then I say, hey, if I get a giga good ring, then I don't need to worry about my second ring, and I don't need to worry about my belt ever. You know, like with one good ring, I can like fix 3 item slots, which I think is very, very nice to have. But I think like the Calandra's Touch is going for like quite amount of currency. For the amulet, it's a bit different. I have projectile skills, I have mana regen, and 46 spirit. And the thing is, I'm running this setup here with a cast on shock with lightning conduit, which is a massive single target boost once this goes off. And the way I can get like an extra aura, basically, because Archmage is costing you 100 energy. So just by finishing the campaign, you have 100 spirits, so you can basically activate Archmage, but going further is quite tricky. But with this version, it's not, because there are gems for your weapon that gives you 15 spirit per soul core, basically. So I get 30 spirit on my weapon, 40 on my amulet, which makes 70. And what I do is running the cast on shock setup with 60 spirit. And I do have clarity here on my Archmage, basically. So that's another mana regen, which basically refers to life regen. Other than that, nothing too crazy. So let's talk about the thing about the mana. Why do I not have life? Why do I not have energy shield? Why do I go strictly mana? And the main reason is that I think currently mana is your best defense, okay? It's not life, it's not energy shield, it is strictly mana. And if you compare all of those three, life and energy shield have issues sustaining. Like getting life regeneration rate or life recovery, getting a high life pool is very, very hard. ES makes it a little bit easier because you have a lot of like percent ES nodes on your tree, so it's nice to get a nice layer of defense with energy shield, but it is hard to sustain. The pro is that you have something like Grim Feast, which basically doubles your ES pool while mapping. I had this on my attribute stacker, where I had like 6,000 ES, but while mapping I had 12,000 because of Grim Feast. And you can go to Eternal Youth, which says your life recovery from flasks apply to energy shield, so you don't need to worry about your recharge rate of energy shield, which makes energy shield, in my opinion, a lot better than life, especially since you can go CI, and there is so much chaos damage in this game that CI is almost mandatory. Like, I tried out a different variety of builds with armor, with evasion, with acrobatics, with physical damage taken as elemental damage, and so on and so forth, but I always felt the tankiest by just going CI. So, if we're immune to chaos damage, it also frees up a lot of suffix spots, which makes gearing this character a lot easier. But why do I not go energy shield, and why do I just go strictly on mana? You can do a hybrid version where you go the Everlasting Gaze, so you basically override this, like, convert all energy shield to mana, but then with the Everlasting Gaze you get energy shield based on your mana, and then you basically get energy shield back. That's what I did on my Triad Speed stacker. On this version, I do not. Mainly because I want to get a big mana pool just for the sake of Archmage, and I also have Mind Over Matter, obviously, where all damage is taken from mana before life. So I don't need life, I don't need energy shield, all I need is mana. The more mana I have, the tankier I am, and the more damage I'm doing based on Archmage. But what makes this thing even better, as I said before, it is very hard to gain sustain life recovery or energy shield recovery, but for mana you have nodes like mana regen, which, since my mana pool is now my life pool, a mana regen rate is basically same as a life regen rate, because I'm playing a mana build, so it is totally fine to get like 1,000 mana per second with mana regen, but it's almost impossible to get 1,000 life regen. So that's why I think mana alone is the kind of like best version to play a character right now, which I think is sad because life builds should be there and should be reasonable tanky and whatnot, and there are a very few builds that are life-based that are tanky, but usually go CI, don't care about life, don't care about energy shield, just go mana. The more mana, the better, the bigger your EHP pool, the better. The next thing is flasks. So a life flasks will grant you like, I don't know, 500 life per second. If you have a life pool of like 5,000, that's like 10% per second. Like, it's completely irrelevant. The same with a mana flask. For example, I think I have like a very good mana flask, or did I sell it already? I think I already sold it. But a mana flask gives you like 200 mana per second. If you have a mana pool of 6,000, what is 200 mana per second? Nothing. The next thing is a life flask basically has like 3 uses or something, and then it's empty. A mana flask has like 10 uses, or over here 7 uses, which makes the Melting Maelstrom so freaking OP for this build, because what you do is you spam your stuff, right? And once you're like this flask alone, 1 button press and you're full. This would be equivalent to a life flask giving you 100% of your life with 1 button press, but instead of like 3 uses, you have like 7 or 8 uses out of that. That's why the combination of like mana stacking with this flask is so insanely powerful. Hey, I drop life, boom, full again, you know? Oh, I drop mana because of my Archmage, boom, full again, right? It is literally completely crazy. And as I said, with CI, we have more suffixes open, which we can spend into Intelligence, which is more mana, which makes gearing, as I said, way better than before. Skill tree wise, we are Gemling here. I went over here for the increased movement speed nodes, and you're gonna see the pattern here. I took movement speed wherever I can, as well as taking movement speed even on my jewels, just because I want to have a fast mapper, and it's very hard to gain movement speed other than like your 35% movement speed on your boots if you're not running Queen of the Forest. Other than that, your classic non-crit lightning rod build with attribute stacking, because we're going for intelligence on every single piece of gear if possible. If you can afford it, because intelligence equals mana, mana equals EHP, or at least higher mana pool equals more damage. So all you do is invest into mana, and you're gonna benefit on all fronts basically. Wildstorms for the maximum lightning damage. Then we have CI, we have Eldritch Battery, and the Mind of a Matter. And then I put in here a controlled metamorphosis with a massive ring, so we can get the pure power, which also scales our lightning damage per intelligence from the intelligence stacking. Then we have Lightning Quick, we have Drenched, and we also have here like a little bit of reduced critical hit chance against you, which makes you a little bit more tanky, as well as the Eldritch Will, giving us also 3% mana and some, things that doesn't really matter, but it's mainly for the 3% mana. Then some cast speed, and this is like a little bit buggy in my opinion. Like Final Barrage, at the moment you count as low life if you're running CI, which is weird, because I actually should be at full life because my life bar is full, but at the moment, this actually gives me 20% increased cast speed. I guess they're gonna fix that, that when you're CI, that you always count as full life. But once this happens, we're just gonna respec that point. Other than that, I think nothing too crazy. All these notes here with spell damage per mana, maximum mana, and regenerate, because we're always moving while casting, right? At least unless we stand still, which we don't really do at all. And yeah, that's pretty much the tree. Gem setup, I do have here a Spark with Arcane Tempo, Control Destruction, Inspiration, Acceleration, and Mobility. You might think like, hey, if you have so much projectile speed already, why do you use Acceleration? The thing is, it gives more projectile speed. It's not increased. If it would be increased, I wouldn't play this, right? So we have 428. If we remove this, we go down to 277. So this support gem actually gives a hilarious amount of projectile speed. And mobility, since this is a mapper, and when I cast spells, I don't want to be slowed down insanely just because I started casting something. Then a cast on shock with lightning conduit, impetus for the energy gain, ally focus, conk effect, and considered casting. Then I have orb of storms with font of mana, strip away, lightning exposure, and conduction. Conductivity with hate and curse, focus curse, and magnified effect. Mana tempest, premeditation, and murderous intent. And Archmage here with lightning mastery and clarity. Where I would say Mana Tempest, I never use that because, honestly, I don't need the damage of it. And if I stand in there too long, it could actually mean my downfall, because as you see how fast that shit rams down my mana. And since I don't have ES, my mana pool, if it's empty, I'm vulnerable to getting killed, basically, right? Good. MTX-wise, if somebody's interested, because people are always asking me that, so I want to include that before I forget it. We have the Snow Collar Helmet. Then we have the, what is it? The Immortal Spirit Body Armor. Going down to the Snow Collar Gloves. Then we go to the Immortal Spirit Boots. Into the Divergence Weapon. Into the Astral Portal and Divergence character effect, and this is how you get this kind of like nice looking astral person somewhat. Good, we talked about the skills, we talked about the stat stacking, we talked about the gearing aspect of this character. What else is there to talk about? Yeah, future plans. Well, basically just farm currency and invest. I want to get like a nice Widowhail with like to hit the next breakpoint. Like in the best case scenario, I would like to go for what do you say, a level 40 Spark, but it's obviously hard to reach. But I think like maybe 500% Quiver effect might be possible, so that would be insanely big. And if I find another way to sustain my mana better, I would go for the +1 skills to make it more likely to hit a high Spark level. Then level 20 gems, I mean the common things. Here a 5th socket for rarity, and here is also something I'm not sure about. I think if I would go bossing with this, I would go for attributes and maximum mana, right? With also increased like mana gems. So here my sockets are still empty because I'm unsure where the journey is gonna go. I think here I'm gonna put in a rarity gem because these are my rarity gloves, they are made for mapping. On my boots, the other hand, they don't have rarity, so this would be more of an item that I would use for bossing, but do I really need that for bossing? Like, an open socket just sells better if I get a better pair of boots, basically, right? An 80% Ingenuity Belt or even higher would be nice. Breach Rings with insane amounts of mana. I think I don't know how to get a better Quiver, honestly, because it already has all the mods that I need on a very high tier, so that doesn't have to change. Helm is missing rarity for the mapping aspect, but this is something I care about right now. I care about mapping, I care about rarity, I care about movement speed. I don't really care about bossing and what gear I need for bossing, so that's why I want to focus on the rarity and mapping aspect first. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Obviously, some other jewels, maybe even an Adorn, because honestly, looking at those jewels, the one stat that I want to have is the increased bonus of Equipped Quiver. And this is stuck on a green gem. And the green gem cannot have like spell damage and all these kind of things. So I said the next best thing is movement speed, the next best thing is penetration, and then what is left over? Like nothing really. Maybe some maximum resistance, but that just means that the most important thing here is the bonus from Equipped Quiver. So if you would go an adorned version and just stacking blue jewels with like 15% bonus and just up to double that stat, you would get insane amounts of value from your quiver. But that is like very, very costly on that part. Then maybe later on for the maximum resistance stacking, but this is like questionable if I even need it, because if I think if I continue this journey and I go up to like 8, 9, or 10,000 mana, I think we should be fairly enough tanky to almost face tank everything, especially since we have an instant life flask with 7 charges. So if I don't get one shot, barely something should ever kill me, and the rest is just like, yeah, more upgrades on the quiver. Maybe, I'm not even sure if the cast on shock setup is actually good, or maybe we go something like Herald of Ash for better clearing, but my projectiles are so fast. But this is just like learning by doing, just playing the character non-stop and just see what feels good, what feels bad. Do I need more damage? Do I need more survivability? Does max stress do something? Or how much rarity can we stack? How much rarity is actually good to stack, because it is a diminishing return. So going 500 rarity I think is kind of pointless, and I'm already having like 200%. So where can we squeeze out like more rarity for no losses, basically? Like I have empty jewel slots, so that's like a no-brainer to upgrade those the next, right? But if we end up using the cast on shock setup, or just completely forget about that and get even more mana regen on our amulet, or maybe go for a unique amulet or something, this is a part of the future, and I'm gonna keep you guys updated on the journey of this Spark character. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you on the next video.